All right, we're now live on Facebook. Okay, so I think we're live on Facebook. Yeah, Zoom is telling me I'm live on Facebook, so we'll take it for what it is. Okay, so this week's parsha is Parshas Lech Lecha. You have it on your iPad, yeah? So that one's for you. This week's parsha is Parshas Lech Lecha, the first Shabbat, the first parsha that we're entirely living with Avram Avinu. Just to start off, the Rebbe writes in Hayom Yom that Parshas Bereshis is mostly a happy parsha, right? Because it talks about the creation of the world, everything starting new, fresh. It's fantastic. There's a couple of mishaps along the way, but the end, it's mostly good. But the end, God's like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm going to get rid of it all, right? So it's not such a happy ending. Noach, it's a destructive parsha. There's the flood, everything gets destroyed. There's the Tower of Babel, this and that. It's a pretty sad, gloomy parsha. By the way, Melissa had bad timing. It should have come last week. The flood was last week, not this week. Somebody was not learning their Chumash on time. Anyways,
It seems like it's moving real quickly,
I don't know.
We're already on the third parsha.
Yeah. So now
we went from creation to we're already at Abraham now.
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying. In Noach, it's mostly negative, but then at the end, there's a little light at the end of the tunnel because Abraham is born. This week, we're finally able to live with Abraham, and the entire week is from Abraham leaving his house, and he raises a family, and he spreads monotheism, and he's fighting wars, and it's happening. He has a happening life, and then at the end, he's even circumcised. So it's
so much fun.
It's a blast, right? So it's a really exciting parsha, Baruch Hashem. But just on a side note, speaking of Melissa, I was quite concerned yesterday and this morning, given the fact that I have a friend who is a Chabad rabbi in Montego Bay, which is the west side of the island. I got hit pretty badly, but thankfully they made it out alive, healthy, safe. They had to hide in their bathroom. Windows and doors were shattered, and it was pretty scary. But they're alive and well, and their car not so much. Their solar panels, which landed on the backyard, are not either. But
no electricity, right?
But Baruch Hashem, they're alive and well. So if anybody feels inclined to give something towards jewishjamaica.com/Melissa, feel free. But back to our parsha. So let's talk about Obama, because I know we don't talk politics here, but I want to talk about the presidential library, which is actually currently under construction, as every president has done, or maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say that as a fact, but many presidents have a presidential library, right? You have the Reagan Library over here. You have which other library? There's one in Orange County, one in Simi Valley.
Yeah, Nixon.
Nixon is in Orange County, and Reagan is in Simi Valley, right? So anyways, the Obama Presidential Library is under construction, which it's supposed to be a legacy of the achievements of America's 44th president. It's a small little cost of $830 million.
Doesn't it look that great?
What?
It doesn't look very great.
No? I don't know.
They said, what does this look like? I put it in an insane asylum.
Well, anyways, the point is, it reflects a broader phenomena that influential, prominent people often seek to ensure that their name and their life's work won't be forgotten over time, and that they'll be remembered for generations to come. Right? That's what people want. During this world, the great, what do people want? They want money, and then above that, what do they want? They want honor. They want legacy, right? So people do all different things. They establish institutions, and they might write an autobiography or have somebody else write an autobiography about themselves. The point is to leave a lasting mark for the future. So what's the Jewish perspective on all this? And we're going to explore what the Torah teaches about this and how to ensure a lasting legacy for generations to come. What happened to your fingers?
6 months, Torah.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Nothing, I'm sick.
Oh,
I'm really
Okay.
sick.
America is upset that Canada also knows how to play sports. That's the bottom line. Okay. I have very little sympathy for this whole thing. Anyways, so let's start with source one. This is Abraham talking to God about his legacy, and he's afraid. What's going to be with me? What's going to be after me? Go ahead.
after these words of Abraham's, God's word came to Abraham in a vision, saying,
It's actually not Abraham over here. It's still
Oh,
Abraham.
Abrams. After these words of Abrams, God's word came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not fear punishment, Abram. I am a shield for you. Furthermore, your reward will still be very great. Abram said, God, of what benefit would anything be that you would give me, seeing that I am childless and because I have no son? The steward of my household is Eliezer of Damascus.
Okay. So who's the steward of his household? Rashi explains that its meaning is, as Onkelos translates, the provider in my house. In other words, a person by whose orders my entire household is provided for, similar to what it says by Joseph, and by your orders will all my people be provided. In other words, my steward. Were I, however, to have a son, my son would be in charge of my affairs. So basically, Avram Avinu had a Chabad house. He was inviting everybody from all walks of life to come in and study about God. And Eliezer was his GM. He was his general manager. He made sure there were enough cups by the sink. He made sure the floors were swept. He paid the electric bill. Whatever he had to take care of, all the back end management, Eliezer took care of.
The wife for Isaac.
Hmm?
Yeah, eventually he gets a wife for Isaac. That's true.
Think
Yeah.
of the things he did.
He did a lot of very important things.
Like King Solomon said, who will I leave my riches to? And will they take care of them in the same manner that I have?
So that's a big part of this. And we're not talking about just physical riches, but the spiritual riches, the values that we impart. We're getting there. But let's read the next Rashi about Eliezer, Damascus, or Damesek. According to Onkelos' translation, it means that he came from Damascus. Where was he from? Damascus. Which reminds me when during one of the wars where Israel went deep into Syria, the Rebbe proclaimed that they should go into Damascus and they should go into Cairo and they should put up an Israeli flag and declare, this is ours, as a statement of confidence, of force, of
73 war.
of strength. It was during the Yom Kippur War. Yeah, sounds right. Anyways, unfortunately, they didn't do that. And unfortunately, they're repeating the same mistakes again now. Well, we're not going to occupy Gaza. What do you mean? Put the flag up on an 87-foot pole. Let everybody see this is Israeli land. Plain and simple.
Just as taking bulldozers, shove it in the Mediterranean.
And they have an opportunity to do that again now, because it's clear by all accounts that there is no ceasefire, there is no end of fighting when they're taking bodies out of the ground, putting bodies in the ground to take them out and make a joke out of this, taking a person's body and chopping it up into three and delivering it over 2 years. It's disgusting.
Very.
And yet we're too nice. We're too nice. Anyways.
It's Uncle Trump.
And you can blame Trump from today to tomorrow. At the end of the day, Israel is a sovereign country and they make their own decisions. And it's their decision whether or not they want to kiss up to Trump or not. And so for Israel's actions, I'm not going to blame Trump. Trump has his own interests. Israel has to have the gall to say we need to do what we need to do. Anyways, and
I told Rabbi last year, I said, there is a very strong possibility that Israel has just as good relations with Russia as it does with the United States. And you said, especially nowadays.
Well, it did, now it doesn't.
well, who knows? Anyways, the point is, I saw the word Damascus and I got triggered because we could have had Damascus,
They
and
were-
now we're giving
they
up
were-
even
they
Gaza
were
as well.
45 miles away. You know,
That's pennies.
were
It's
right
inches away.
at the city limits.
Exactly. And yet we're too kind. We're too nice. We're too timid.
But weren't that close.
And that's why people think that we're you know, we're available to
Remember,
attack.
we surrounded the Egyptian Third Army too,
Which war?
in the 73 war.
Okay. Anyways, so Eliezer was from Damascus, says Onkelos, but according to an Agadic explanation, Rashi adds, he was so called because he had pursued the kings until Damascus. Okay, so that's the second reason why Eliezer is called Damascus Eliezer, because he pursued kings, he chased them down all the way till Damascus. And in the Talmud, it's explained as an acrostic that Dameshek comes from the word dole umashke, which means one who draws and gives drink to others of the teachings of his master. So Dameshek is hinting to the fact that Eliezer would be dole umashke. He'd draw water from the well and give it to others. In other words, he was taking from his teacher Abraham and spreading it to the rest of the world as well. He was also involved in the proliferation of monotheism throughout the world. Hence the name Dameshek, saying that he was dole umashke. So it's a combination of those two words. Okay, so Abraham continued.
Look, you have given me no children, Eliezer. A mere member of my household will inherit me.
At that moment,
At that moment, the word of God came to him, saying, this person will not be your heir. Rather, one born from your own flesh will inherit you. God took Abram outside his tent and said, look towards heaven and count the stars. If you can count them, he said to him, that is how numerous your descendants will be. Abram believed in God, and God counted it for him as an act of righteousness.
okay. So in short, he's like, this is not the guy. You're going to actually have biological children, and those are the ones who you can count on that'll be your heirs. Okay, now let's see what the Rebbe says about this. Go ahead, Steve.
Eleazar of Damascus. When Abraham speaks about Eleazar saying that he and not Abraham's son would inherit all what he owned, he emphasizes the steward of my household is Eleazar of Damascus. With this, Abraham is highlighting Eleazar's virtues, as Rashi explains. The steward of my household, the person of whose orders my entire household is provided for. In other words, when Abraham needed to manage his affairs, Eleazar ran them on his behalf and did so successfully.
In other words, remember, Abraham was a very wealthy man, so he needed a property manager. He needed a manager. So Eliezer did a good job at that.
Of Damascus, he had pursued the kings until Damascus. This means that when Abraham had to go to war, remember he took that dirt and turned it into arrows.
Right.
Eleazar led the fight and achieved victory.
So not only was he his general manager, property manager, and secretary, and then some, he was also his secretary of war.
Secretary of dirt.
Well, that too.
Damascus is also, that's what I used to say when I was like, it's also interpreted as an acronym for one who draws and gives drink to others from his master's teachings, meaning that Abraham studied and spread knowledge of the Creator in the world, Eleazar received his teachings and carried out his mission, spreading them further.
Okay. So in other words, Eliezer was not just Abraham's servant, but he was also his student. He was also his emissary. He was his shaliach. He was his emissary, sending him out to spread the teachings to others and make those values of faith and morality popular around the world. And and help make those teachings accessible to everyone. So we see this idea taught in the Talmud. The Talmud tells us in source 2, Eliezer was a veteran yeshiva student. As the verse says, Abram said to his servant Eliezer, the oldest member of his household, who ruled over all he had. And Rabbi Elazar said, that's a different guy, that's from the Talmud, said, this means he mastered his teachings. So what does it mean he ruled over everything? Meaning he ruled over his teacher's teachings. He is Eliezer of Damascus. Rabbi Elazar said, it's a typo, it's supposed to be Rabbi Elazar said, he drew and gave to drink his teacher's wisdom to others. So this is actually the source that Rashi is referring to. So what's the war that Eliezer fought, as Steve mentioned just a moment ago, that there was a war that broke out between two groups of kings. Essentially, it was a world war, right? What's a world war? In World War II was, I don't know, think of some irrelevant country in South America or something. I don't know. Brazil. Were they part of World War II?
They were.
Was Uganda part of World War II?
No.
Right?
Well, it was because it was a British colony.
Okay, but practically not every single country needs to be involved in a war for it to be a world war. It just means it's a war that's affecting many, many countries in the world, and everyone in the world feels the effects of the war because of shipping lines and this and infrastructure and whatever, right? But so essentially there was a world war during the times of Abraham. And there were two groups of kings. 4 kings were victorious and conquered many territories from a group of 5 kings, and they kidnapped people. And one of the people that they kidnapped was Lot, Abraham's nephew, because Abraham's nephew Lot was not as righteous as Abraham, and he chose to hang out in not the nicest neighborhood in town, let's just say, and he got kidnapped with this group of 5 kings. And the Torah describes how Abraham came to rescue his nephew Lot. He went out to battle, and he had 318 fighters when he set out to battle. However, for some reason, if you look at the verses later, it seems like it was just Abraham and Eliezer that fought the war. So how does that make sense? I mean, the fact that they won was a miracle because, like you said, they threw sand, and each grain of sand turned into an arrow. So you imagine how much sand can you cup in your hand? It's thousands of grains of sand, and you throw that, and it turns into arrows.
Nice.
That's going to be pretty effective. So
Read the Torah.
Is that in the Torah?
yes,
Where?
I'll show you later. But basically what happened was, why did Abraham end up with just Eliezer? According to this interpretation, Abraham told his men that anyone who had sinned shouldn't join the battle because their sins are going to cause the entire group to fail. And so basically everybody's like, in that case, I'm out, as Mark Cuban would say, or whoever, right? For that reason, I'm out. And they all left except Eliezer. And actually, Eliezer's name in Hebrew, the gematria, the numerical value of the name Eliezer equals 318. So So that's a little bit more about who this guy was, just to appreciate that he was not just a nobody, but even when everyone else ran away and chickened out for more, he stayed there. And of course, his merits were worthy enough that God created that miracle that they won the war. Now, let's go a little bit further about Eliezer, and that is the story of the man who entered paradise alive. So our sages list 9 individuals, righteous individuals, who entered paradise while they were alive. Elijah the prophet is one of them. One of them we read 2 weeks ago in Parshas Bereshis, Chanoch, the son of Yered. And let's see who else makes the cut. Source 3.
9 entered paradise alive. Hanak, son of Yered, Elijah the prophet, Mashiach, Eliezer the servant of Abraham.
By the way, just saying, the guy who got killed on a cross, he didn't go anywhere alive. Just saying.
What?
The guy who got killed on a cross,
Oh,
he didn't go. He got killed. He didn't go anywhere alive.
Oh.
Just pointing that out for the record. Anyways, keep going.
Mashiach, Eliezer the servant of Abraham, Hiram the king of Sur, the servant who saved Jeremiah from the pit. Yavetz, some identify him as Othniel ben Kenaz, the judge of Israel.
First judge.
Huh?
Was he the first?
Who's the first judge?
Okay.
For 40
Datia,
years.
daughter,
Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh.
Datia, daughter of Pharaoh, Sarek, the daughter of Asher, and some include Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi.
He was found.
Who was? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi?
Yeah, they found his grave.
Some say. It says some say.
So that's because
And even then, did they have DNA of him?
you have DNA. They found some guy was digging, had a place. What's the name of it? Forgot. But what happened?
Archaeologist in
Yeah.
Israel?
Yeah, so they brought in the archaeologists. They go, oh my gosh, this is the grave of Yeshua ben Levi. So it was because it says that's who it was.
Is this in Tveria? Or Tzfat? No.
No, it's Zvi.
No, I'm saying where is the grave?
Oh, it's in that area.
Hmm. Okay.
But yeah, some guy was gonna try to have his house, and then he had to wait 2 years before they evacuated everything.
Interesting. Anyways, so
So we know he's not one.
the point is Eliezer is in some pretty high up there company. So you have to understand who Abraham, our forefather, was the founder of a new faith, belief in one God, and he dedicated himself to spreading that faith amongst all the nations of the world. And to accomplish that, he set up a tent at a crossroads where there was high traffic, and this way he'd get travelers and guests. And during these encounters, he would teach them about the Creator. And his monotheistic movement quickly gained momentum. The momentum of the monotheistic movement. Look at that. Mo.
What this?
You want?
I don't like chocolate.
You don't like it?
Hell no, I can't stand it.
So,
Vanilla.
Abraham would basically work on the men and bring them closer to monotheism. Sarah would do the same for the women. And they built a strong community over time. And who managed all the infrastructure of this community center? It was Eliezer. So Eliezer did a phenomenal job, and he was really, the dream team, as we'd say. He really was talented, devoted. He was aligned with the mission. He was at Abraham's beck and call whenever he needed him. But at a moment of truth, when a defining moment arrived, Abraham expressed pain to God, saying that after all this effort and achievements, Eliezer is going to be the one to inherit him. I mean, naturally, if he doesn't have any of his own children, the guy who's been his right-hand man is likely going to be the guy to get his will. So, for some reason, Abraham was not happy with that prospect. Let's go to point B, a son to inherit. Steve.
Why emphasize Eliezer's qualities? There is an apparent difficulty here. Okay, that's it. Okay, given the context of Abraham's argument before God, what is the use of all that you have given me? It would have been enough for Abraham to say, you have given me no offspring, and no one will inherit me as a member of my household, meaning that his heir would be a stranger. Why then does Abraham emphasize in arguing that his heir is a stranger, that this person is one who possesses the admirable qualities mentioned above? Why is it relevant for us to know this to the extent that the Torah relates Abraham's praise of Eliezer in detail?
Right, because he says, and behold, my household member will inherit me, and who's that? Dameshek Eliezer, which implies all of these qualities, that he fought the wars, that he was dedicated to me, that he taught things, he was like my right-hand man, and like shouldn't you be like degrading him if you're trying to make a point that you want a son and that this guy's not good enough? Like, it seems to be somewhat contradictory that on the one hand you're praising him, on the other hand you're complaining about him.
He's not complaining about him. He's complaining he doesn't really have a son, but
So let's see the Rebbe's lesson over here. Yeah.
Okay. Everyone wants to succeed. Don't you want to succeed, Jim?
Sure.
Great. The explanation is that this detail contains a profound lesson that sheds new light on the entire episode. Human nature is such that every person deserves to see successes in the areas which they devote their efforts. Some people find the energy and passion in business and commerce. Others are driven by the pursuit of conquering new lands. Even the ambition to conquer the world, meaning that they seek new fields of activity to master and to prove their superiority in them. Still others devote their entire focus to spreading their faith and teachings, their ideals through the world.
Right. Some people, they want to be just a mayor. Some people, they want to be a governor. Some people, they want to be president. And some people just want to create a world war and become the king of the whole world. And, everybody wants their things to spread however they want it to spread. But some people want to spread their teachings.
Okay, at first glance, all these people share a common trait. When they see success in their endeavors, whether in spreading their faith and teachings and conquering new territories or expanding and developing their business ventures, they feel that they have achieved the central goal and ultimate purpose of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
The Torah, however, teaches that seeking success is only half the job. When can a person truly be
Seeing success
Oh,
is only half the job.
seeing success is
Big difference. There's seeking, and then there's actually seeing it in the results.
See, I'm still trying to see. Okay, when a person can truly feel satisfied and joyful from spreading his faith and teachings, conquering new spheres or of activity, or developing successful enterprises, when can they see these meaningful goals and derive pleasure from them? Only when they know that all these efforts will be continued not only by a stranger, but by their own child. And it is human nature not to be content merely with the knowledge that one's work will be carried out by someone capable. They want to be continued specifically by their own child.
They want it to be. In other words, they want the work that they've invested so much in to be continued by their own child. They see people who run a very successful business and they want it to be a family business. It's again, this is not to criticize or judge somebody who doesn't do it that way, but it's a normal human instinct to want your child to take over what you've been doing. That you want your son, your daughter to follow in the path that you've led. This is why, look at my father-in-law, for example. he opened up a Chabad in Pasadena, and he's like, I want my kids to do the same thing. And some of them will open new Chabad, some of them will work in this Chabad, and please God, he should live for 180 years, Gesundheit and Fröhlichkeit. But he has two of his kids working in the same organization because you want it to be continued with the same passion and the same commitment and the same personal investment as you have yourself. And naturally that comes with your own children.
How many kids are working there?
Two of his kids are working there.
Rabbi Lavelle?
And Zushi. Well, Zushi's wife is his daughter, yeah.
Oh,
But anyways, it's just one example. I mean, you could look at thousands, if not millions, of family businesses that they keep it in the family, right? So, our lives are our business. They're our investment. They're our values that we have spent our whole lives building up. And so it's only natural to want that it continues in the family. Otherwise, your turn.
the continuity and preservation of everything Abram stood for may not be assured. The highlights that
This highlights
This highlights that a person's true reward is when all their life's accomplishments and achievements are carried forward by their children and grandchildren. Only then are those achievements completed and down with enduring value. It is for this reason that Abraham is speaking to God's, emphasizes Eliezer's virtues when he says, "You have given me no offspring." Even though he had a loyal servant like Eliezer, the steward of my household, Eliezer of Damascus, he would surely continue to spread his teachings, expand his enterprises, and conquer all the realms he sought to reach. Abraham nevertheless says to God that this is not the reward he seeks. What is this use of all of that you have given me? Abraham's deepest desire was to have children of his own, children who would carry on all the work and missions for which he had fought, risked his life, and sought God's blessings for success.
I want to pause for a moment and
I hit the pause button.
Take
And-
your time, Rabbi. Take
no,
your
no,
time.
no, pause from reading and think for a moment. Here, who's talking? The Rebbe's talking over here. This is in what year is this? I'm not even sure. The Rebbe himself, I mean, had a lot of values that he taught to the world, a lot of teachings that he shared publicly, personal relationships. And the Rebbe is saying that it's natural and normal for a person to want to have their own biological children. And yet the Rebbe and Rebbetzin himself
Amen.
did not have any of his own children. And I feel like part of what the Rebbe is telling us is, let's understand, what is it about children that people want so badly? And us who are the students of the Rebbe and studying the Rebbe's teachings today, some 50 or so years after the Rebbe gave this talk, it behooves us to ask ourselves and to read into what the Rebbe is saying here. Children would carry on the work and mission for which he had fought, risked his life, and sought God's blessings for success. And since the Rebbe did not have biological children, to ask ourselves and say, how can we do that? How can we fill that role that the Rebbe clearly is implying he wished he had himself? So I think that's just a very interesting observation. In who's making this observation about Abraham? A rabbi, a rebbe, the rebbe who, on a physical level, that wasn't blessed with that blessing. So that's just my own take.
That was the first thing I got when I was reading this.
Okay.
Okay.
So good.
That-
Great
that
minds
was-
think alike. What can I say? But there's something very deep and fundamental the Rebbe is teaching us, and that is that every person wants to succeed in their life's mission. Abraham's mission was spread the faith of God. He laid the foundation for Judaism, and he was very, very successful throughout his lifetime. He created a movement. He created, I don't know if they gave out red hats, but they definitely were very, very popular. What are you looking around the room like somebody might catch you laughing? It's okay. It was a good joke.
I see the red hat in front of your head. So that's, in fact, I didn't want.
Oh, that's not what I was.
Oh,
oh.
I thought you were referring to that.
No, I was referring to something else, which we don't say the P word around here.
Oh, that one.
So, anyways, but he made a big movement. It was very, very popular, and he understood that in order for this faith to be truly eternal, there was something more that was necessary. It wasn't just enough to have a lot of believers, a large following. It wasn't enough to just write books explaining faith. There was there was nothing really that would guarantee it. The only way to ensure true continuity is by educating your own children, your own grandchildren in the same path, so that they live it and they advance it, and that they're just as committed and ready to sacrifice for it. That's the only way to make Judaism everlasting. And that's why Abraham asked God for a son, somebody who would carry Judaism forward for all generations. Now you can ask, like, why specifically a child? Eliezer could have continued Abraham's mission. After all, Judaism accepts converts, and converts are equal members to the Jewish people. And well, what's wrong with that? Why do you need this element of Abraham having his own biological children?
You know, when I was 6 years old, I used to say the reason why is Eliezer couldn't dig a well.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Isaac dug wells, yes.
Wells.
Oh.
And I remember it took like 30 seconds for the rabbi to catch it. And it's like Horowitz.
I mean, but it's a very, truth be told, I mean, it's a great remark for a 6-year-old.
You're right.
But truth be told, it seems like a irrelevant fact. Like, okay, so he dug wells, cute. Like, so he dug wells. But I mean, of course, when we understand the importance, according to Chassidus, of what digging wells symbolizes, it means uncovering Alma de Scasia, revealing the hidden worlds, and that's all good.
I saw a TikTok or YouTube video today. They were finding old cisterns in Israel. They were jumping into them and swimming.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, why don't they could use that water for the crops or something? Have all those people in there.
And they can use it for swimming.
They're pulling stuff out anyway from the aquifer, but they're very protective of their aquifer and Israel, as opposed to what's in the Central Valley, where the aquifer is sort of like missing right now.
Anyways,
wow.
Yeah, Israel does a good job preserving their water. I'm not too worried about some people going swimming. So, Chassidus explains is that self-sacrifice for Judaism exists innately in the soul of every Jew. And of course, that includes the soul of every convert to Judaism, because they have a Jewish soul as well, and they have the power of self-sacrifice as well. But before the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, those who joined Abraham and Sarah didn't yet have that inner transformation. They weren't bequeathed that power of Mesiras Nefesh, of self-sacrifice. And indeed, there is no real lasting remnant of the many people who were drawn to Abraham's community and his movement till today. You don't have people who are saying like, oh yes, I'm an Abrahamic influenced descendant. It's not a thing. So what do we learn from this? The Rebbe says this serves as a lesson and a directive for each of us. Waging a campaign or struggle for a certain ideal, such as for spreading Torah so that it reaches every corner of the world, is not enough. We must also ensure that our children and entire families will be faithful continuers of that work. And not only continuers, but dedicated participants and fighters for the same ideals and the same truth for which their parents and grandparents struggled. This matter is so crucial that even when God grants abundant reward, your reward shall be very great, and even the greatest reward imaginably that only God himself can grant, as long as there is no assurance that one's life's work will be carried forward specifically by their own child, a person feels no satisfaction in the reward, nor in the struggle that they dedicated their life to. So the deepest joy, the deepest nachas that a person experiences is in their own children. So besides for the fact that the true continuity can exist only when the children dedicate themselves also to that life of Torah and spreading Yiddishkeit, there's also a unique reward in knowing that your own children are following in the way that you want them to, in the way that you care so much about. And that's why Abram was asking so much for that blessing, because it means something so deeply to know that your own children are following that path. By the way, this is one of the, in my opinion, this is one of the reasons why the Rebbe made shlichus, the whole concept of emissaries going out in Chabad to all different places of the world. It wasn't just a man being employed as a rabbi or a couple being employed. No, it's a whole family unit that are all shluchim. And the Rebbe talked about the kleine shluchim lach, the little shluchim lach, meaning the children. They're also emissaries. Leah, Menachem, Yoi, Sarah, they're also shluchim. Not just one day they're going to be shluchim. Right now, they are doing that work of spreading Yiddishkeit. Story is told about Rabbi Zalman Garari. He was fondly known as Jimmy Garari. Anyways, in 1959, he managed an extensive business network in Brazil. And through these enterprises, he developed close commercial ties with wealthy businessmen whom he would meet during his frequent visits to Brazil. Now, the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, Rabbi Shmaryo Garari, who was the director of the Central Tomchei Tmim Yeshiva in Brooklyn, he asked his cousin, the businessman, Rabbi Zalman Garari, if he could accompany him on one of his business trips to Brazil to try to maybe raise funds from some of his business acquaintances to help support the yeshiva in Brooklyn. Now, Rabbi Zalman wasn't too enthusiastic about the idea. You know, business is business. Don't mix business with pleasure. You know, but the Rashag asked him persistently, and so he agreed. But he set a very clear boundary. And he said. So Zalman Garari, the businessman, told the yeshiva director, the Rashag, as follows: if you will secure from the Rebbe, from your brother-in-law, the Rebbe, a promise that upon our return from Brazil, I'll be granted a private audience during which I'll receive a blessing for whatever I ask, then I'll agree to take you with me to Brazil and introduce you to the businessmen so they'll contribute to the yeshiva. Like, look, you have connections. Your brother-in-law's the Rebbe. You know, get me a meeting with the Rebbe. You want a meeting with my acquaintances? I want a meeting with your brother-in-law.
Your acquaintances, right?
Exactly. And surprisingly, the Rebbe actually agreed to the condition. Because the Rebbe had a vested interest in the yeshiva succeeding. So he's like, you know what, fine. So Zalman Garari and Rashag, as he's known, Reb Shmaryo Garari, traveled to Brazil. Within just a few days, they succeeded in raising remarkable sums of money. And later, Rabbi Zalman Garari would recount to his grandson that every wealthy man they met responded warmly to Rashag's appeal and contributed very generously. So when they came back to 770, you know, with enough funds to sustain the yeshiva for many months, Rabbi Zalman Garari told the Rashag, in his characteristic style, I did my part of the deal to your satisfaction. Now it's your turn to ensure the second part of the deal happens. schedule my yechidus with the Rebbe and make sure I receive the promised blessing. Not just schedule it, make sure that he knows what I'm coming for. So, so he got the meeting, he got the private audience, which you have to understand. The Rebbe didn't always just meet with anybody you wanted. If you were lucky, you got a meeting once a year. But he enters the Rebbe's room, the Rebbe greets him warmly, and he looks at him and he says, "What would you like to ask for?" So Zalman got very emotional. He starts telling the Rebbe about a large cargo ship that he had recently operated. It was filled with merchandise being shipped from one country to another. And tragically, the ship sunk at sea with all its cargo and caused him a massive loss. And his request was that he should be able to recover all the money he lost from that ship sinking. The Rebbe's expression turned very serious. And he said words that Rabbi Zalman Garari would never forget. And he said, if one is given the opportunity to ask for anything he wants, he must have the wisdom to know what to ask for.
Mhm.
And then the Rebbe added, you should ask that your descendants be Hasidim, God-fearing Jews, and that they grow up in the paths of our Rebbes. So he wasn't ready for that. But he immediately replied, very well, that's my request. So the Rebbe smiled and said, that you shall have. So did he recover the ship? I think maybe in time he did. But Baruch Hashem, he merited to see, what's that?
The Rebbe made him see the light.
Yeah. No, but
Most ships they're insured by Lloyd's of London. All
I don't know.
That's a tough one.
The point is,
No.
this was the story, Ma'aseh Shehaya Kachaya,
Yeah.
and it really stuck with him, and Baruch Hashem, it stuck with his children, grandchildren. One of his sons lives in Montreal, who he's the mashpia, like the spiritual leader in the yeshiva over there. He has a couple of sons here in LA, who Baruch Hashem, I think qualify what the Rebbe was referring to, God-fearing Jews, etc. Actually, one of them is married to my first cousin. Because in Chabad, everyone's related. It's not unique. I could have said a story about any chassid and told you that my cousin's something, Anyways, so that's a story. The Rebbe was teaching Zalman Garari that when you can think of any blessing in the world, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're thinking about a stupid ship. Your children, your grandchildren, that's what you should be caring about. All right, let's continue. The critical importance of education. Page 8.
Critical. Yeah.
It's section C.
On page 6. Something small.
Yeah.
Okay. This is why it wouldn't go down. Okay, this is why we find that the great leaders of the Jewish people, from Moses until today, place the utmost importance on education and raising Jewish children to be faithful, continuers of everything for which their ancestors fought and gave their lives throughout the ages. These leaders were not content with merely making proclamations and statements about the need to strive for a world of justice, integrity, and peace. They worked tirelessly to ensure that our children, our grandchildren, and our families with themselves carry the banner of those ideas of which Jews had sacrificed themselves for generations. This is just an added This is not just an added bonus, something that merely desirable if circumstances allow. It is the very essence of our lives, the very essence of
Rebbe actually adds in the Hebrew, and if not, no big deal.
Right.
Like, that's not the case.
It is the very essence of our true reward for all that we've struggled and achieved in life, the ability to educate children who will continue in our own path.
So there's a lot of talk that's been given about being a light unto the nations. And yes, of course, Jews have been a great contribution to the world in every field, whether it's science, medicine, but obviously more importantly, in morality and ethics. And, the fact that the Ten Commandments are even a thing that people know of, it's thanks to the Jews. But when all is said and done, if we continue to do all this in the widest and most meaningful scale, it's still not enough. The most important thing is that the younger generation within the Jewish people should be the torchbearers of these ideals to carry them on. It's not just enough that you have light spreading, but you need the actual torch to continue to be lit. Because if the torch goes out, there's no light 30 feet away. It's nice that you have a powerful torch and it's reaching very far, but the actual torch needs to be held on by the next generation.
Remember, in the UK, that's a flashlight.
So the true reward for the Jewish people throughout the generations is having a new generation of Jews carrying the mission forward. And that's the only way, the surest way to ensure that our faith will endure. When there's children who are continuing to live it and are ready to dedicate themselves to it completely, that's how it happens. So we'll end off with a different address where the Rebbe observes that the defining attribute of the patriarchs was their being patriarchs. That's why they're not called the leaders, they're not called the presidents, they're not called the kings, they're called the fathers, the patriarchs. And they taught their progeny how to serve God. Let's see source 4.
God rebuked Moses by saying to him, I am God. Why is that rebuking Moses?
That's just the intro. Keep reading.
I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob only as Ewan Shaddai, great Almighty. I was not manifest to them by my name God.
By the way, it's Kel Shaddai. Yeah.
Huh? Oh, El Shaddai.
Yeah. And Rashi explains, I appeared.
I appeared to the patriarchs.
Okay. So several commentators ask, says the Rebbe, what does Rashi add by commentating on the verse, I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob? He's like, oh, who is that? Oh, the patriarchs. Like, yeah. This is especially difficult in light of what we know from the Shalah, and even more so from the teachings of the Alter Rebbe and the later Rebbes who followed him. They taught that every word and letter in Rashi's commentary is considered and precise. It is therefore clear that this comment to the patriarchs requires explanation. What exactly is Rashi adding? I revealed myself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Who? Like Abraham Goldstein? Like Isaac Perlman? Jacob Rabinowitz? Who are you? Oh, the patriarchs. Thank you. Now I know who you're talking about. Of course we know who we're talking about. Which other Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the world could he be referring to? The explanation is that Rashi intends to highlight that the primary distinction of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob lies in their being patriarchs. Although each of them possessed an individual greatness in their personal divine service, Abraham in kindness, Isaac in strength, and Jacob in harmony, and although each of these qualities was expressed in perfect and boundless form, still, that is not their essential greatness. Their true distinction is that they're being patriarchs. And I am going to have to be patriarchal to you right now, because you are not going to bed, huh? As the verse says of Abraham, the first of the patriarchs, for I have known him, so that he may command his children and his household after him. What does that mean? God's love for Abraham is described not as a result of his personal spiritual greatness, but because he ensured that his descendants will follow his path. And although the word patriarchs does not appear explicitly in the verse, Rashi revealed that this is its inner, deeper meaning. The chief virtue of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the defining quality is that they were patriarchs, that they raised children like themselves. So you could say they were kind, they were serious, they were giving, they were this, it's all wonderful.
How did that rebuke Moses?
Oh, because you have to understand the context. That's not the point we're focusing on.
Well, I asked you, you said keep reading, we read, I didn't see the
Yeah,
answer.
no. Basically, Moses asked to have God's essence, his deeper name revealed to him, and God's like, well, I only revealed my name with Kel Shaddai, not with the Tetragrammaton. Why are you demanding this? That's the context of that. But the point that Rashi is teaching us, and that's what the Rebbe is focusing on over here, is that the quality, the chief quality of the patriarchs is not in what they did, but meaning in what each of them specifically did, whether it was being kind, being strong, being harmonious, which are wonderful qualities. But what's that worth 7 generations later if you didn't teach your children to do that as well? The point is, what makes them great? That they were patriarchs, meaning that they were people who taught the next generation and imbued those values into the next generation. Actualizing Shema, your turn.
The importance of education is also emphasized by the
Recitation.
Having the hardest time getting that off my tongue. Of the Shema twice each day. We recite the Shema. We recite the Shema when we rise in the morning. Okay. At the start of the day and at the end of the day before we go to sleep, we recite it once more. One of the central themes included in the Shema is the commandment of education. You shall teach them diligently to your children.
1 second. Sarah, can you do this Shema for us? Just to demonstrate? Let's see. Which hand goes on Yegelach? This one? No. Okay. All right. This
Okay.
emphasizes.
Okay, this is where I'm at. This emphasizes that regarding all the matters connected to the declaration of the Shema, Hear, O Israel, with which we begin and end the day, we must remember that they must be followed by you shall teach them to your children, which is the first paragraph. We must transmit, teach, and plant these values in our children so that they too continue to live by them.
So it's one thing to say, Hear, O Israel. In other words, every Jew has to internalize that the Lord is one. That's great. And we have to close our eyes. We have to focus. We have to internalize it, not be distracted. We have to really, really, really believe that and live with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not good enough, because the Torah says, what do you have to do right after that? Continue it. Make sure your children do exactly the same thing. You hear that? All right, he's listening. So that's the core of Jewish life. Part and parcel of Hear, O Israel is teach it to your children. Keep going.
This is the true blessing that a person can ask and receive from God, that the spreading of Torah, the establishment of new endeavors, and all their business affairs will be continued, not merely by a worthy and faithful person like Eleazar, but also specifically by their own child or grandchild.
All right, Jim, keep reading.
And the merits of the sacrifices. This leads us to the continuation of the weekly portion. God says to Abraham, take for me a calf. Rashi explains that this means that the merit through which the Jewish people will remain in the land of Israel is that of the sacrifices.
So let me just give you a little context. We're talking about the covenant between the parts. Familiar with that? That's
Between the what?
between the parts of the animals. God told Abraham to take a bunch of animals, cut them in half, and basically a fire went through in between, and that was supposed to be a sign that God's saying, I'm making a covenant with you and your children after you. I'm going to give you the land of Israel. Okay? So that's part of the context that we're reading over here. Source 6. Good, keep going.
God said to him, bring for me 3 calves, 3 goats, 3 rams, and a turtle dove and a young dove. Abraham said to God, let me know by what merit my descendants will continue to remain in the land. God answered him through the merit of the sacrifices.
Okay, so this was supposed to be a hint to the future sacrifices that will be brought in the temple. goats, rams, turtle doves, other doves, calves. These are all examples of sacrifices that were brought in the temple later on, right? As opposed to, like, for example, a chicken,
Mhm.
which was never brought as a sacrifice, which is, fun fact, one of the reasons why we do kaparot. Before Yom Kippur, we slaughter a chicken because we don't want it to be some sort of mimicking of something we did in the temple, because we don't have a temple. So we therefore take an animal that was not used there. But anyways,
Remember that?
what's that?
I don't remember us doing that.
I remember doing it and it crapped on my head.
Because we didn't do it here.
5-year-old.
Yeah, you have to remind
Nice.
me. Remind me next year before Rosh Hashanah,
They'll take you.
and I'll take you to the kaparot, where we go to a little chicken farm, take a chicken, wave it over your head. You give all your sins to the chicken, and then a shochet slaughters it and gives it to the poor.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
you gotta flick out the money for the chicken.
Oh.
It's maybe 30, 40 bucks. Not a big deal. Anyways, the point is, back to over here. Let's not chicken out from what we're reading here. God told Abraham to take these various animals and cut them in half, and he's telling him that the merit of the sacrifices, I'll keep my promise. The merit of my children keeping the sacrifices. Says the Rebbe, every truly good thing must contain an element of giving of yourself. Good things don't come easily. Come on, somebody in your life once told you that, right? Good things don't come easy. If something comes effortlessly, that itself shows it isn't of real significance, and it will slip away as easily as it arrived. Easy come, easy go. What in Gemara parlance, it's called nama de chisufa, false bread. This is why sacrifice is necessary, and the greater the goal, the greater the sacrifice it calls for. So over here we're using sacrifice in the poetic sense, not just the literal sacrifice on the altar, but giving up something bigger. So too here, if we want not only success in what we do, but also continuity through our children, we must be ready to make sacrifices, meaning to give of ourselves for the cause of education. Practically speaking, this means financial participation. So what the Rebbe is saying here is that, people are concerned that sending my kid to a Jewish school is too expensive. Private school education, it's out of hand, and I think in many ways you could say that in today's day and age, it's gotten even more out of hand. Families pay 60, 80, sometimes 6 figures just to send all their children to, I'm talking about annually, to send their kids to Jewish school every year. And the Rebbe says that if this is something of value, you're not going to give it up. You're not going to throw your kids into public school and relinquish their ability to follow in the paths of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we have to be willing to sacrifice for this cause, and even if it costs a lot of money, not to give up on it. I mean, that said, there was a podcast I was watching this week, Meaningful People podcast. Shout out to them. They're not sponsors yet of this class, but maybe they will be. And they had a couple of people on talking about you're moving too much. Stay here, please. They had a few people talking about how there has to be more done in the philanthropic world of, bankrolling some of these Jewish schools to help families be able to afford it. When tuition is $18,000-$19,000 a child every single year, and you have, I don't know, 10 children or whatever, give or take, it adds up. It's not cheap. I wouldn't say $1 million a year. I don't know how you would get to that number, but
I guess they're not all in college at once.
I don't know about college. Nobody's talking about college. We're talking about a
regular
Jewish
school.
education. Jewish education.
Grade school?
Grade school, yeah.
Wow.
Not public school.
I thought you meant college.
Who's talking about college? You missed the whole thing last week. The Rebbe said not to go to college. College is a place of depravity and and
Can't argue there.
anti-God and all that. Over here, we're talking about a Jewish education. Anyways, this goes back to the story with Jimmy Garari, how, the Rebbe was willing to give a private audience just so that money could be raised for education. Anyways, the point is, the next generation really matters, and we got to do everything possible to make sure that they have everything they need. All right, we're going to take care of you, Sarah.
Remember, this was being Hebron. We haven't